it, then fuck it. Ay, we gonna win in the end. Yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100. Ay, if you don't like it, then fuck it. Ay, we gonna win in the end. Yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?
One out there in the social media world, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, my name is Jamar Jabari, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in and looking at the back of my kitchen once more. If you like this video, please share, subscribe. I'm gonna have in the details below about the link to support as well too. It's the Anchor link. You just go right down, support. $1.99, $4.99, $9.99, whatever your heart desires will definitely be helpful. We have no corporate backers, and we are grassroots type of level. So it's always good to just keep on supporting what you feel is good for the cause. It's like this is a podcast platform and talk about music, politics, and culture. That will always be the concept here on this podcast. And speaking of culture and politics, I have a very special guest, Norman Lebron. Norman Lebron is a community outreach coordinator for this awesome group called Q Plus. Norman,
Hi.
thank you so much for coming on. And I want to also thank the organization for like being willing to have you on here. I was very nervous to think, oh, maybe I'm not worthy, and I didn't want anyone to feel that, oh, no, we don't know you yet. And I'm like, hey, it's my time to get to know y'all.
Oh
So
no, we would
this
never
is
do
really a
that.
privilege.
Yeah. Like people treat us the same way because we've only been around for like 3-4 years at this point. So like I don't
Hmm.
think we would ever do that to another org just starting out.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah.
And what are your pronouns, Norman?
My pronouns are he, him, his.
Okay. Thank you. My pronouns is he, him, his as well too. I need to
Thank you
start
for
getting in
asking.
the habit of always doing that. By the way, guys, we gotta always keep doing that. I do that a lot in person, but I have an issue with doing that on camera, which is a habit I need to freaking break. Um, but you said Q Plus started about 4 or 5 years ago. And a little background, I was a part of Life in My Days, and sometimes we did a little coalition work with a group called True Colors, which is no longer around. And when I saw I was on the Zoom call where you guys came out and talked about the work that y'all are doing while Living Colors was dissolving. Life of My Days also has dissolved as well too, unfortunately. But I was so amped up because I was like, oh my god, who is going to take on this work? The conversation about queer youth is so at large on scale right now, and all you
Yeah,
hearing is voices from cis misogynistic assholes. Let's just be real. That's exactly who they are, that
totally.
have one thing in mind: control and policing kids' bodies. And as being a former queer child, I took a very big, like I felt so threatened by it. And I feel like the rhetoric is so much more stronger than it was in the past. And maybe I'm over exaggerating because I'm only 30 years old. But we could get to that point. We're gonna first let's break it down. We'll get to the talk about uh, youth, queer youth, and all the work that you guys do around that with keeping their stories. But first, let's talk about how Q Plus started.
Sure. So, a whole bunch of us had already been volunteering for True Colors, which was
Hmm.
the queer youth organization in Connecticut before us. Um, and we were getting requests from the kids that they wanted to say in the programming that involved them. A lot of times, especially with like different groups of youth, they're kind of like dictated to. And state organizations and funders often think they know what's best for the kids when the kids are saying one thing and the funders are like, okay, well, actually, we know what's best for you. So, like, they'll do the complete opposite thing. And one thing in particular that the kids were requesting was a space where they could perform drag and poetry and different performing arts that wasn't a club, that wasn't a bar.
Mm,
They felt like they wanted to
mm.
perform, but there wasn't really a space in Connecticut that was accessible to them. So the first thing we did in 2019 was we started doing queer youth open mics. Our very first one was in May of 2019. It was at the Little Square Foot Theater over in Wallingford, and it was like a huge hit. Everybody loved it. Everybody had a great time. And ever since then, we've just kind of like built on that. And then when True Colors ended up disbanding, we kind of took over a couple of their support groups. So we do have a Tuesday support group on Tuesday nights over Zoom, and we also have a game night that we took over on Thursday nights.
Mm. And that's absolutely awesome. And you guys are expanding and growing, um,
Yes.
which is absolutely dope. How was that process? Was it lingering, or was there a lot of pushback, or was it a little easier? Because I know it's a lot to take on after the dissolving of of True Colors.
So we did expand into some other programs. So we took over those two groups that I just mentioned,
Hmm.
and now we have two youth groups that meet on Fridays in person. One meets on Fridays in West Hartford at a church, and the other group meets every other Friday in Middletown. And those are the two groups we have going now. We are planning to expand out into other cities and towns because we keep getting requests from all over the state.
That's
Um,
absolutely awesome. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's kind of like the way we're building now. At first we were like a little bit iffy about going into churches, but honestly the churches have been like super supportive. I've been really surprised.
That's
At
amazing.
first we were just like, oh, I don't know if I want to do a church, but then there's been a whole
Hmm.
bunch of open and affirming churches that have been more helpful than everybody, and they're the ones that are just like, please use our space for free.
Hmm.
um, so like I was really pleasantly surprised with that. We did get some pushback because we do have a GSA portion of our program that goes into schools and does in services. We'll consult with your GSA and your GSA coordinators for
Mm.
free. And I think that's where we're getting like the most pushback because we go in and identify problems, and then the administration just seems to be either like apathetic or they don't really care to like change anything. We're working with a few school systems on that kind of stuff right now.
So, for my audience, can you explain what GSA is?
Of
What is that?
course, sorry.
No problem.
GSA is it stands for Gay Straight Alliance.
No.
It
Yep.
is the name is kind of dated because now we have like more than just gay and straight. But for a lot of people, that is the group that like all the queer kids go to like
Hmm.
work on stuff together, to collaborate, to meet other queer kids. And it has been proven that just having a GSA reduces the risk of suicide among LGBTQ youth. Just knowing
Mm.
that that resource is there is really important for kids, and we have certain school districts that are not allowing their schools or their kids to have GSAs. So that's kind of like one of our battlefronts that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, I remember I met Ace at GSA and at Houston Community College when I was just starting, because I was so closeted and I was just starting to like branch out and want to actually like acknowledge who I was. And that's where I first learned about that group. I never actually officially joined, but I met Ace through there, and it was like I learned that a lot of people are like me, and because I came from a very hard church background, which
Mm-hmm.
was very very like no 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 pray the gay away type of lifestyle, um, and I didn't see a very open church foundation until I moved to New Haven, where literally on the green there's like three open welcoming gay churches, which I was so shocked about. It was like a whole new phenomenon to me. And that makes me happy that there's others in Connecticut that are also contributing to helping out with Q Plus, because that is such a big deal. Going into the schools, this might be a large part I hopefully it's not a large part because I have other questions. I don't want to keep you for so long, but we definitely have to talk about this because from my background, what I have done was I worked for MEO, which is a dissolved government funded nonprofit, where we talked about safe dates, and we talked about what abuse looks like and the spectrums of abuse, physical, mental, go all I don't remember curriculum in those 20s, and then we briefly um, the queer community within kids schools, and we were teaching like eighth, seventh graders, but it was so brief. It was like a mention that, oh, by the way, they're gay kids here and we should love and
Mhm.
respect them. And then the kids are like, no, 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 because they're kids and we've all been raised in this reactionary, homophobic society. So I wasn't really shocked about
Mhm.
how the kids would respond to this, but looking at the curriculum, I was kind of disappointed that that was not actually like a big part. And I think that is what the schools really need. And like there are some that are receptive, some that are biased towards it. Um, and here in Connecticut, there's a huge anti-trans movement that is building, that is Republican inspired. As much as people try to just hide it between the girls, it's a huge political campaign. How we know? Because these bills that they are proposing are all over the country. They're being proposed all over the damn country.
Mhm.
It's not like it's unique. And what happened in Florida is definitely uh understanding that Florida is like not even the first. It was other states as well too that I can't even think of. But it's there's a huge sentiment to attack trans youth and to attack queer youth. I just said a lot
No,
there.
it's we're seeing the same thing in schools. I feel like we always get emails throughout the week from people in different districts around the state. And ever since a certain person came into office, we've seen an
Mm,
uptick in bullying, not just from students, but from teachers and administration as well. And it's like really weird when I hear these stories about like teachers using the wrong pronouns or like misgendering someone on purpose. Not only doing that, but encouraging like everybody else in the class to do the same thing.
mm,
And then you bring those issues up to the administration and they seem not to like want to move forward because they don't want their school to look bad. So then like nothing ends up getting taken care of. And that's when like they call us in to kind of like talk to people and say like, okay, no, students actually have like these rights. And Connecticut actually has guidance. It's not like codified into law yet, but Connecticut has guidance
mm,
on how to treat trans students, how to like what you can allow them to do and like how to address them properly. But it's really clear that some people haven't like it has to be codified into lawsuit because like just having that guidance there on the state level
mm.
isn't doing enough.
Yeah. So I did not know. You just taught me something there. I thought that it was already in law, the protections
Mhm.
that we have. And that bothers me, especially seeing how easily world Roe versus Wade could just be just swiped under. So it's a lot more easier now for these fanatics that are against queer youth to try to like change things.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of people listening should be aware of this, and they should also want to get mad and to the point that we have to organize to get this. We should push this Democrat state to actually, I don't know, be a Democrat state that they say they are and protect
Mhm.
these kids and
Put
codify
their
these
money where
things
their
into
mouth
law.
is.
Right, right, right. So what can I know that you're most focused on the morality of the schools for these kids. So there's no campaigns or anything that you know of that are plugged into trying to get this codified into law? Just on the side note.
Um, Not that I personally know of.
Hmm.
Like it was just there was a whole campaign just to get the guidance out to schools.
Mm,
And I think the like codifying those guidances into law, into state law, so that everybody has to follow it, would take a lot more lobbying on our part.
mm,
But I think we're up for the fight for at least a few years to come because it looks like that's how long it's going to take.
Right.
Yeah.
And are teachers leaving, or like, are you seeing more teachers being receptive what after they learn that they're being wrong about these things, or is it more negative backlash?
I've seen a little bit of both. Like some people literally just they haven't really bothered to educate themselves on the changing language and how to respectfully address people. So like I think once they find out, they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry, you know. But like for a lot of the teachers, actually, most of them, it is kind of like a backlash where they're just like kind of standing on their beliefs, and they're just like, well, no,
Mm.
I knew them as a girl before, so I'm just going to address them this way. And
Oh
it's
man.
more like them standing on what they believe and not caring if they're disrespectful to the trans kids.
And it's like it's like they refuse to get to know them when they do that part, and it's like they put them more in harm's way when they do that part. Like I think of what's recently coming in the news with the situation with Dwayne Wade and his ex-wife, and
Hmm.
he was explaining that you haven't sat down with Zendaya. I said Zendaya with Zaya, and actually spoke to Zaya about how she feels and what she wants and how what she is experiencing. And like you don't really, he's like telling his ex-wife that you don't know your daughter as much as you think you know her, and
And this
that's
kind of
that
goes
struck a
back
quote.
to
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to like one of the core issues we had when starting Q plus. Aside from the trans issues, aside from LGBTQ issues, there's this underlying issue that people who are minors who are under 18 aren't considered full human beings. And they don't have the same rights as like a full grown human adult has. Under state law and under federal law, you're allowed to like do all these things and be disrespectful, and because they don't have full personhood literally under the law.
I'm sorry, we just missed you for a
Oh,
few
I'm sorry.
seconds. Can you repeat that? That was my internet right there. That wasn't StreamYard.
Okay. So what I was saying is that like what you just said actually reminded me of one of our core issues that
Mhm.
under the law, children do not have rights.
Mm.
Minors do not have rights. So people are allowed to do all sorts of things with them and move them around in ways that like wouldn't be acceptable for a normal adult human because like they're not considered fully human under the law. And
Right.
so, like, when they're sitting there requesting these things and requesting that you respect them, requesting that you respect their identity, people don't feel like they have to. And a lot of times they're also subject to like a lot of abuse by the parents because, like, once again, they don't have control over their own life and their own bodies.
Mm. Yeah, that oh my god. I never even really thought of it that way, but like that is true. Like, especially here in Connecticut, a lot of these kids don't have rights.
Hmm.
And I think that we should give them rights, honestly, to like so they can feel that they can hold their own as an individual. Um, and I get into these conversations a lot with friends that are my age, of course. And we had, and I feel like this is like a conversation that I wish that we could bring to a conclusion that you guys are wrong and you have to see it from a different perspective, because this is just a reactionary culture that's embedded within our capitalist system that we all been raised in, to fear things we don't understand,
Hmm.
instead of, and my father and my mother, they just now are accepting who I am, but I'm 30 years old, so that took a long time, and I was very, very afraid, but so it inspires me to see these kids that are trying to live their truths and struggling to fight, and we as adults need to back them and support them, that's why I'm so glad that Q Plus is doing that shit.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad that your family supports you. That's like a really huge deal. That's like another factor in preventing suicide. They found that if when you're an LGBTQ teenager, having just like one adult in your life that supports you and cares about you greatly reduces your risk of suicide.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. And so on that, do you guys? So I know that there's a organization called Trans Lifeline.
yes,
Um, do you guys have like a little training in that as well too with these schools?
we do not have training with Trans Lifeline. I mean, we refer people as a resource to Trans Lifeline sometimes,
Hmm.
um, but we don't have like a specific like a training for how to support queer and trans youth, if that's what you're
Hmm.
asking about. And then we do
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in
I was
service
thinking
for
like if there's
organizations.
like a way, yeah, because I know that you have the groups, and these groups they're like open mics and all types of
Hmm.
events. Which is the next part is that it's such a big deal that changes the culture because a lot in the past we have found safe space at bars and
Hmm.
everything, but it wasn't really something that is positive. Like a lot of people are trying not to use alcohol. A lot of people used to be alcoholics and don't want to go back to that. um so and then with kids, they always make that argument, why are kids at drag shows and all stuff like that, they shouldn't be at bars. Like there was a very push thing, but it's a part of queer culture. And in given a space where there's no alcohol, and it's actually a space for kids that could actually like take part, that's a great idea. I've never even thought of that.
Yeah, so like they do complain about kids at drag shows, but like we've done like a lot of open mics at this point.
Hmm.
And I have like I'll do a little confession. I have like two MAGA parents. Like they're
Mm.
like MAGA, anti-vax, like everything
God bless
parents.
their soul.
And yeah, I know. And they're always asking me like, "What are you doing with them kids?" Because they think I'm
Oh my God.
indoctrinating them, or like when because at first I didn't really tell them what I was doing. I was just like, "Oh, I'm going to church to youth group this Friday," and they would be like, "Oh, that sounds good." But then after they realized what it was, they were just like, "What are you teaching them kids in that youth group?" And I was like, honestly, it's just a space for them to be themselves. It's a space for
Mm,
them to hang out. A lot of these kids, they're bullied so much in school. We've had kids that are just like, I found my first set of like real friends in Q plus because that was the
mm,
first time they felt like they could just like let loose and be themselves and not have to worry about like everybody like constantly bullying and harassing them. That's what it's
yeah.
really about. Just giving them that space to just be, like I don't have to indoctrinate them. I don't have to like fill their head with all sorts of stuff. I just like my main goal is to have them feel safe and accepted and supported by the adults around them.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I apologize about that glitch, but I heard everything you said, and that is exactly what um I'm talking about. Just having the space, because there's not that much space, and it's always a great way. I know as a teenager, for me, we had poetry club, and we had I can't well, actually I went to a whole performing arts school as well too,
Oh
and
wow.
then the gay came out so strongly, so embracely. But it's to have a spot where you don't feel judged. You're with people that
Exactly.
are like you. You know what I mean? Like I understand. I even think of it from like a people of color level, where there's people that are pissed in schools how there's like people of color only spices and stuff, and college and stuff like that, and they're like, well,
Hmm.
college you're supposed to experience everybody. Like, no, sometimes you just need to be with your people.
Hmm.
Sometimes you need to be able to debrief. You need to be able to relax, confide in others that actually understand you. um
Exactly.
because you're literally the whole time just hiding and trying to be cordial. Honestly, that's literally what you try to do with your existence out in society, because society is so barbaric. Um, how many kids do you guys deal with on a weekly basis?
Uh, I'd say like whenever I go to youth group on Friday nights, it could be anywhere from like 15 to 20 something kids in the
Mm,
church. And I don't run the online groups myself, so I don't really know the attendance for that. But it's just like anywhere from around like, 7 to a dozen kids usually like are rotating in and out of the online Zoom groups.
mm.
And then for our open mics, we usually get like a really good turnout. So we actually just had like a Halloween open mic down in Middletown as part of their Main Street trick or treat thing.
I saw,
Yeah.
yeah. Now for adults, Is there any opportunities that adults can take a part of with Q plus?
Of course, we're always looking for help. The I told you that like we're always kind of like expanding out into
Yeah.
different towns because we get requests. Right now we can only hire and staff so many people. So if you want us to start a group in your town, what I would say is, if you want, you can help us start the group. You can
Mm,
connect us with other organizations in that town or that municipality that can offer us space, or like another organization that we can collaborate with to start a group with.
mm,
Because that's really how we're going to get everything done, is like through collaborating with organizations that are like already kind of doing the work in the community. And we do have a few groups lined up. We're trying to start one in Stores Mansfield area. I think there's one starting up in Portland, right across the bridge from Middletown. And then we're starting Black and Brown Queer Youth Meetup in Hartford. By next year, we're supposed to start that up. We're still looking for like spaces to host. We have a few prospective spaces, but like if anybody in Hartford wants to collab with us, reach out and give us a call, and we'd be happy to work with you.
awesome. I'll definitely put that information below, and I'll talk to Kirill about that too, because we definitely could have some more space like that in New Haven. Um, there's a lot of groups in New Haven, but I feel like that we all became detached and need some reconnection.
Hmm.
I would just leave it there with that.
Okay.
I want to air out New Haven right now.
No war. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's just that thing, when I feel like I feel like that's what True Colors have brought. True Colors have brought you guys to like become great organizers to do this work without them,
Hmm.
and moving on without them. And it's okay. That is okay. And it shows just how important this type of work is needed. um T Door is coming up.
Yes.
Um, and there's a huge, I see that there's a big effort going out um all around the state for T Door on November 20th. When I saw a flyer where there was like a, a good number of cities and stuff like that. Are you guys a part of, or part of that event that's going to be happening all around?
Yes. Yes, we are going to be doing stuff for Trans Day of Remembrance. I know we have like a few meetups planned for that
Mhm.
day, but I'm not sure which. But I could get you the information after the interview.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, because I love the fact that this was able to like yearly, annually around to continue, and it keeps growing, especially in New Haven. The crowd gets bigger.
Hmm.
And it shows the solidarity. It really does show the real true solidarity. And I think after everything that's like going on right now, it just really I think it's so important that this like gets bigger and bigger, to like show these people that you don't get to say, because like literally everywhere I go, because I'm a podcaster, so of course I collab with other podcasters, I talk with other podcasters, journalists and stuff like that, and I get into arguments with I call them my peers. I'm gonna call them my peers. I get into argument with
Okay.
my peers because these guys are all cis and straight, majority of them, and they just don't. I'm like, just the bare minimum. How about you bring someone on that's queer, to talk to them? Just that simple. If you wanna like be biased about trans people, get a trans journalist on, trans activist on, and have this conversation and shut up and
Yeah.
listen. First of
And
all, shut
actually
up
have
and
a conversation. Yeah.
right. They're just blah blah blahing all on their platform, and it's discouraging. It really is. Shame on you guys. Honestly, it's not right.
So the whole thing with like Trans Day of Remembrance, I feel like my boss and I have like traditionally had a problem with it. Like we're doing stuff for it now, of course, because you know
Mhm.
like our but like why do we only like celebrate and commemorate trans people when they died?
Mm, that's big.
Why? Yeah, like we need to be respecting them and celebrating them and supporting them like year round, not just like when they died. Your life is worth so much while you're alive. Like, we can celebrate
Mhm.
you while you're still here. We can support you while you're still here, so that it doesn't get to the point where we have to do a candlelight vigil for you.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think, like, that's really what we try to focus on. But, like, we
Mm.
don't mind doing Trans Day of Remembrance. It's just like whenever like TDOR comes up every year, like, those are the feelings that like come up, and we end up having like a whole like conversation about it.
Mm. That no, that's really is a big deal. And it also brings up the conversation on what trans people go through, especially like the violence that is always ignored. And I had people literally told me, well, probably the reason why you heard about this is because they are known for this and that, and it's probably not a thing. I'm like, how ignorant, how fucking ignorant would
Yeah.
you say something like that? Like, that's not true. Like, it's a rising issue, especially amongst Black trans women, and I think it's so important to like you said, like I agree, like acknowledge and show them love while they're here, and
Mm-hmm.
not just want to do a visual. The visual is so much important as well too, but it's also important to acknowledge and give them their flowers while they're here and let them know that they're loved.
Exactly.
And that's I have lost a few trans friends by suicide, and that's the first thing that always comes to mind with me. I don't want to get emotional, sorry,
No,
but
it's cool.
just
It's cool.
acknowledging, I was like, did I honor them? Did I make them know that I let them know that I also loved and cherished them? Was I a good friend? Did I do the right thing? And I think a lot of people think about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about that especially around trans and queer people 24/7 whenever I hear we lost someone, because it's just so near and dear to my heart. And and this is why I want to bring people on like you and other activists and organizers around the community to have this conversation, so people that do listen, especially my shout out to my queer friends that listen, that they feel that there is support, there is love, there is
Mm-hmm.
respect. Would you say Connecticut is the safest for LGBTQ youth and LGBTQ adults in the states, or do you think that
I
they can
would
do so
say
much
it's
better? This will be the
safer.
last question, actually.
I wouldn't say it's the safest. Right now in the current climate, I wouldn't brand any state in the United States as like, oh, come here, it's like the safest place for you. There's
Mhm.
always bullshit going on. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
No, you're allowed to curse.
okay. But we like, I do on a state level see people really trying, and as other states become more homophobic and codify that homophobia and transphobia into law, I'm seeing Connecticut really make an effort statewide, like at the government level, to try to like be the place that, okay, well, if you feel like you can't live in Alabama or Texas or Florida anymore, you can move here, and we're going to take care of your kid, and we're going to help them get on therapy, and we're going to help them transition, and we're going to help them with support services.
Mhm.
Um, and I've even seen like a whole like marketing effort around that. This past year at Middletown Pride, people from the Connecticut Tourist organization were walking around with like "Find Your Vibe" and CT shirts, because they
Mhm.
want Connecticut to become like a place where like you can find your group of people and you can fit in, and they want Connecticut to be that welcoming state. So even though I don't feel like right now it's like I would say it's the safest, but I do feel like we are a lot safer than other places, and we're trying.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I definitely see that vibe as well too, all around with just even like hearing what Ned Lamont says. He's like, "Oh, come to
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut." He's trying to like get people to come to Connecticut a lot. Um, and then I'm just like, we should want that, but we should also, like you said, understand that nowhere in the United States really is you
Mm-hmm.
truly safe at, and we need to focus on taking care of our people here first before we just invite everybody to come
Yeah,
here expecting this type of like, oh well, they said that we're going to be very respected and protected under their laws, and then it's not happening. It's like, how does that going to look? Like, why would you promote it if you can't even do it effectively? And Connecticut's a very small state, so I always say that this is the building ground for to do something extraordinary, that an experiment where people can try it out elsewhere. There's no theory without practice. As that's
exactly.
just my
Yeah.
socialist brain all the time. There's no theory without practice. So I think it's so important that that conversation of acknowledging that we have to do more, and also acknowledge that before bringing people in, how are we, what level are we at? I'm trying to articulate it in a certain way, but
No, I get you.
clearly
I get you.
it's not working out. So we're getting down to the end, and I don't want to take any more of your time. What any announcements that Q Plus is working on? And anything interesting that's going down?
Oh, I kind of already let the cat out of the bag. Which, we're like
Yeah.
starting groups. We do have the Black and Brown Queer Youth Meetup coming up
Hmm.
next year. We're gonna try to start it by January. We have like some groups in a few other towns that are starting, but we're still trying to like procure spaces and collaborations for those. They did just start a Magic the Gathering meetup in New Haven. It's at
Oh,
AIDS Project New. No, actually, they're not AIDS Project New Haven anymore. It's a
APNH.
place to nourish your health.
Yeah, I'm down
APNH,
the
yeah.
street from that. That's hilarious. I used to play
Yeah,
Magic
so
the
like
Gathering.
on Wednesdays, on certain Wednesdays, I don't know if it's maybe like 1 or 2 Wednesdays a month, they're going to be hosting like an MTG thing for kids to go and learn. And they've actually put together like
Wow.
pre-assembled decks, and yeah, like people can go in there and pick up Magic. So, and we also this past summer we had queer social justice oriented summer camp program.
Mhm.
But we're trying to turn that into like a year long thing, kind of turn it into like a queer student leadership thing that we can do all year long.
Mm, that's awesome. And I wanted to say thank you so much for all the work that you guys do there. And please continue, and don't let the nonprofit world ever try to discourage you. Keep it going. And you
That
got
hit me.
support. You got some. Oh, as a former nonprofit guy, I
you
totally,
know.
yeah, I know. That's why I wanted
Okay.
to bring that up. Like, don't ever let them discourage you. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Again, if you like the conversation that we had with Norman Lebron, community outreach organizer here at Q Plus. Oh my God, I just realized that I put the wrong bottom. I'm about to edit that part out
Okay.
because it went from here talking about Drea to here.
Okay.
I just made a stupid mistake, and I didn't realize it because I already had your name above. So I'll have to fix that. There's some editing that's going to go
Okay.
down today. But yeah, thank you so much for coming out to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to everyone that's listening, and like, share, subscribe, and support. I'll have it on the link below. On Q Plus, you can do all the happenings. And also, if you really love and enjoyed this podcast, definitely support, because it is definitely going to help out with more content like this. Thank you so much for coming on, Norman, and
Thank you
I
for
hope you
inviting
have a
me.
really good day. Oh yeah,
You too.
and I love to see you again in the future. You know what I mean? Whatever. You guys have a media outlet here.
Oh, thank you.
And have a
Um,
good day. Oh wait, yep,
you're editing this afterwards.
yes.
Okay, can I ask you some questions, not like off the record?
Oh okay, yeah.
How long have you been doing this podcast?
Um, about a year, almost 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Because like I saw the intro and you have like so many interviews that you like stitched together for the intro, and it looked like you've been doing it a long time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I dropped a lot of episodes. This is like my baby right now. I have interviewed at least over 80 people, I believe. At least.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. In the past almost 2 years. Yeah. I've been crazy
Wow.
about this. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. That's like you're dedicated to your craft. So
Yeah, I'm trying, I'm definitely trying. It's hard because it's a lot of work, but I get help. And then when I get the help, it makes life easier. So it is what it is. Thank you, Danny Shaw, by the way. Should shout him out. He's one of the guys that help brings the journalists on and stuff like that. A
nice.
little unofficial official producer. Shouts out to all the publicists, by the way, that actually tolerate me and my crazy leftist and gay activist views.
So if I find people, I can also refer them to your show.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Nice,
That would be so great.
Definitely. Well, they would love
We
to
can even
talk
do
to
like
you.
a panel, you know what I mean? Whatever. Like anything. I'm down for it. All right. Well, thank you so much, LeBron, and I hope you have a good day.
You too. Thank you for inviting me. So.
Blank period, yeah. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?